It's Spoilerin time, folks. Those of you know, you know, but those of you don't know, this is the show that takes all the knowledge from Cordkillers and applies it to watching things. Cordkillers, we talk about how to get them. Here, we've watched them and we talk about what we've seen. This week, we're going to talk about Picard, Season 3, Episode 9, Ted Lasso, Season 3, Episode 5, and Succession, Season 4, Episode 4. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Heck yeah. Also, Tom, I hope you'll take this in the spirit it's intended. I don't think that's how the "if you know" meme works.
Oh no, I wasn't doing a meme. What's a meme?
It's called a meme. Don't worry about it.
It's spelled meme. Yes.
We'll
I hear
talk about
kids
shows.
talking about those. Yeah. Let's talk about Succession, Season 4, Episode 4, full of old people like me. This is the funeral and is the most succession story I think I have ever seen, because it is literally about the succession, and it is literally what the show does to take something like a funeral and then just turn it to its basis. Like, well, I know we're at a funeral, but we should talk about selling the house, denying his fling assistant from getting her things from upstairs, and of course, who's going to be CEO.
But before we get into deconstructing all of that, just real quick, both of you guys, that's new, that because this episode begins with Shiv getting a call from Dr. somebody or other, and it sounds an awful lot like she's pregnant. Was that established,
20 weeks.
Or is that out of nowhere?
That's new.
We knew that she was trying, and we knew that one doctor had told her that it wasn't likely. And this is the first we've heard that maybe it was successful.
Well, and I didn't know if when I saw that, I was just focused on another show that we're talking about. But that would seem to complicate things.
Wait a minute. I take it back. I don't think we knew that she couldn't get pregnant. I am confused.
You are confusing. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
okay,
but
good.
It was entirely new that she's pregnant. Yeah.
I was trying to
We
play
did know
along.
that they had talked about maybe having a baby at one point previously.
Correct. So where we're at now in the chess game. By the way, loved. Succession is a masterclass in soft language and soft actions, where you could tell because nobody completes a full sentence. Nobody says exactly what they want. Everybody couches everything in the soft language of, like, for example, the harshest moment in this entire episode is when, what's his name? The guy who used to be Sledgehammer in the 80s. He says, Tom, if I were to phrase what the oppositional position might be, then it might be super duper harsh indictment of what Tom's negotiating position is. At which point Tom immediately folds and realizes his best bet is to re-court Shiv all over again. I mean, it's wonderful jockeying across the board, not only in verbiage, but also in like physicality. Like, for example, when Logan Roy's most recent girl fixation says, well, I need to go upstairs. And there's just a little bit of like physical movement to block her from going upstairs. And it's awful and wonderful. It's strange and bizarre. And awesomely, we go back to the beginning. Oh, and it's not just soft language. They brought their game up by, for a good 20 minutes, describing things as an underlined name, and then it's brought up like underlined or crossed out, and they don't show us what it is, and then we see somebody somewhere had to print out that page and do like 70 underlines that become a cross out in order to create that perfect superposition.
Done.
It was amazing.
Eileen was like, I don't know, I think it's crossed out. I'm like, yeah, you can think that, or you could think it's not crossed out. That's the beauty. That is perfectly done. You can argue rationally for either one. It is perfectly ambiguous, which is exactly what this show is about, right? Like riding that line of ambiguity where nothing is real. I guess, I hadn't thought about it before until you were talking about the fact that everybody uses such soft language. It's why Roman sticks out so much when he's blunt, right?
Yes.
And he's only
straight
blunt
up
when it's
calling
not
out.
really important. Yeah, but like when he's like wants Greg to get out of the room or something like that.
Well, and Greg is also blunt, but he's also clueless. So like Roman always accurately calls out things. Like, for example, when Tom approaches Roman, Roman's like, "Ooh, putting on that that chapstick, huh? Getting ready to kiss them butt cheeks." And it's like, "Yep, nope, that's exactly what he's doing." And then meanwhile, cluelessly, Greg says, "Long live the king." The kings, I guess. I don't know. Like, he's also authentic, but they're like in the 4-quadrant structure, they're both authentic, but one in a adroit way, one in a clueless way. Here's what I suspect, and I'll keep it short. Shiv finds out she's pregnant. That's a new thread for the show. I think that is the only reason that she doesn't fight very hard against Kendall and Roman taking the reins. And I think that will, once Tom finds out about it, like he cottons real quick that the only way he has to hold on to any of this is to court Shiv again. And that's only going to be the end that lets him in.
Absolutely. I love how quickly the dynamic, and yet not even very dramatically, but how quickly the dynamic between the three goes from united in the wake of their father's passing and, varying levels of denial, with Roman trying to say, I'm dealing with this better than you, when he very clearly is dealing with the worst. He was the one denying that Logan was dead the longest in the previous episode. So it's interesting, but they're all supporting each other until that piece of paper shows up. The piece of paper that they thought would be funny. It was a funny joke that it would get flushed down the toilet. It's not getting flushed down the toilet. It's too good of a plot device. But you're like, yeah, you should probably just destroy that because it is not legally pertinent. But of course, the rules are if they get caught flushing it down the toilet, then they're all in much worse trouble. So instead, disclose, because that's what you have to do, but minimize, to say like, look, we have to tell you about this, but it's kind of meaningless and immaterial. And of course, it immediately drives a wedge between all three of them, and they realign with Shiv on the outside. They pull the move of like, no, Shiv, it'll just be us two in name, but it'll still be all three of us. And she very quickly is like, yeah, it's not all three of us. I gotta go on my own, like you said.
Well, so my favorite stories are those that pretend to be one thing but are secretly something else. And I don't know if it's a stretch, and I would love to hear Bryce's take on this, but Succession pretends to be about this particular family in this story. But the way it's written makes me suspect that what it really is about our society writ large, where at all times we assume there are microphones and cameras on us, and we, again, soft language to dance around them. Like everybody was issuing a press release at all times. Bryce, how did this one land with you?
This was a good episode. I definitely felt that there's that moment near the beginning of the episode where you're supposed to kind of, I think, feel like, oh my God, if one more person tells me that they're sorry for my loss.
Yeah.
I think that they really hammered that in without really pointing to it very, very much. Also, just shout out for your boy absolutely calling what Shiv was worried about, the idea that the kids killed Logan because they did that coup to renegotiate the deal. Cha-ching. And it's I liked the three children working together, but you know what? Maybe it's probably better that they don't. It's probably better that they're all kind of at each other's throats as well, because there's not another family member to, like, without Logan, the three of them is not enough. They kind of all need to be going their own different directions to fill in that gap.
In the chat, FW_tree says, yes, pre-grieved was a great phrase. That was kind of, we'll unpack this in after talk for the patrons, but that was a phrase that I had used about the loss of my brother because he was descending into addiction, and I believe, like, it was very weird to hear a naturally occurring phrase to me as I watched him for 2 years descend into addiction and then lost him. And then, we're 2.5 years out of it and I'm getting my head on straight. But to hear that exact phrase used as like a clever twist of words was like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah, that had to be a little uncomfortable, huh?
Not even uncomfortable, just kind of neither here nor there. But it's very weird when you think you made up a phrase and somebody independently made up a phrase.
Yeah. Turns out that was a good phrase. That has multiple meanings. I also want to point out that Logan is very much in this episode without being in this episode. That is one thing that probably seems obvious, but he is such an outsized character that even after his death, everyone is still reacting to him. And the first time it hit me that he's actually gone was when they got called into the office and they kind of all look at his sweater sitting there. And you're sort of like, oh, right. He just left that thinking he would come back and put it on later, and he's not. And you hear the from the two kids. It was a brilliant little moment.
Well, it's interesting that that's the linkage of the scene that you got, because to me, the moment that his presence was the deepest was when they were running through the greatest hits of the eulogies for him, and they were translating them. Like he was a true individualist, or like a racist, or I'm going to mix it up. But anyway, that was
the Greg and Tom's little sideshow. Yeah. Anything else on Succession?
I will sum up, and I would love to hear your take, Tom. This one was not so fun for me, although it was very, very good. Like, I will not deny that it was very, very good. But this was the last episode was electric because everybody was united in a horrifying moment. And the whole time, and the tickle in the back of my head was, and now the knives are out. And yes, this is the episode where all the knives are out. So it felt kind of process heavy to me, but at least we know where everybody stands now.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it was process heavy. This felt right. This felt like, okay, here we go. And of course, they said it in a funeral so that it's as uncomfortable as possible for the knives to come out. This is not a family that waits for the funeral to be over. No, they despite their own best intentions, it felt like the kids didn't really want to bring it out, but then the board meeting had to happen then, and et cetera, et cetera. I liked it. It was not a fun episode. I wouldn't describe it that way either, but it was a good episode.
Yeah.
That is Succession Season 4, Episode 4. Let's talk about Ted Lasso, Season 3, Episode 5. The disappearance of Zava. He's gone. He just quit. He got out of there, decided to move over and let Jamie Tart prove himself to be the best player in soccer.
Tom, I disagree. This whole episode.
You disagree with what? What are you disagreeing with?
I disagree with...
That Zava's gone, or that Jamie wants to prove himself?
I disagree with the mere fact that you would remember anything other than Roy Kent's unbelievable monologue about how to deal with a bully. That was one of the greatest bits of writing that just kept on going, had me in tears laughing. It was amazing. Roy Kent says, they do a good, classic comedy mix-up style of like, Ted Lasso's son was in an incident with a bully, and Ted Lasso's angry, and Beard's like, let's get on a plane, let's go beat them all up, and then they're all discussing it, and they have the Diamond Dogs moment or whatever, and for the first time, Roy really engages with it, and then he just goes on this Christopher Walken Pulp Fiction style monologue of how you deal with a bully. You go at 4 a.m., the most statistically unlikely time anybody will be defending the house. You loom over them, and then you pull out an oversized rope covered in red blood so that you can bludgeon them over and over and over. And when they wake up screaming because they don't know what's blood and what's paint, then you bludgeon them some more. And then when they finally beg you to stop, you I believe I'm getting the quote right, laugh as long as you can, which is, it was so exhaustive. I loved it beyond words.
It was a good bit. I'm not gonna dispute you on that. I was thinking the whole time, they didn't say he was bullied. And I was expecting from the moment I read the text, like
Yeah.
his son was the bully. His son did the bullying. And in some ways, I was almost let down by the eventual confrontation when he finally got on the phone and his kid just sort of apologized and was very much like Ted Lasso's son about it.
I think it was written on purpose to be something that was pretty a transparent feint at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
We also had Keely's rebound hookup with Jack. I did enjoy the development of Barbara. I did enjoy the assertion that Keely needed to be comfortable cutting out detritus from the company. I did enjoy the over-the-top plea for everybody to join what's her name as she left, and that one cowardly guy.
Yeah.
Trying to play it both ways.
Who wanted to go, and then she's like, "Yeah, I don't want you."
Yeah. I also enjoyed. So now we could talk about the thing that we accidentally touched on earlier, which is Rebecca goes back to her fertility doctor because of the psychic thing, and gets the news. Nope, you're not going to have babies.
Right. And is clearly at least mixed feelings, if not flat out disappointed by the idea, especially because so many other parts of the psychic's prediction have come true. The green matchbook and the shite in nining armor, unlikely things. So I don't know. Maybe the doctor is wrong. Maybe this is Shiv from Succession. I mean, we just haven't got there yet. I don't know.
It does seem off-brand for a show that is about the reality of everything from therapy to dealing with the reality of many difficult challenges. It would be very off-brand if the psychic went 3 for 3. So the psychic landing 2 out of 3 seems pretty right on to me. Meanwhile, oh my God, if you told me season 1 that Jamie Tart was going to be my favorite character in this show, that he was going to be the one who heroically understood that working with a team is the way to win, and he would be the greatest disciple of Ted Lasso, I am loving all of it. It was great.
Yeah, it was a very good Ted Lasso episode. It wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. It was right there in the middle. And at this point in the season, we're at episode 5. That's where we're going to be. We're setting up pieces. Keely and Jack's tangle is going to complicate an eventual rapprochement attempt between Roy and Keely, I would suspect. The firing of her friend is going to come rebound back some way. Also, Nate ends up making friends with the cold receptionist at the Greek restaurant.
Jade.
Yeah, Jade.
I don't know what casting director deserves an award. Maybe we'll make up an award just to send it to that actor. She is amazing. Her deadpan, dead-eyed stare is incredible.
And it was so believable that when Nate was blown off by the pretentious model and actually acted genuine, that would be the moment that Jade would be like, yeah, you know what, you're all right.
Yeah. Well, and so what else on top of that?
Zava's gone. You seem to just not want to acknowledge that Zava's gone. I don't know why you're in denial about Zava leaving, Brian.
Mainly because I called it previous episodes before. But the
you think you would be celebrating that instead of avoiding talking about it?
No, I'm a progressive. That's why my daughters are named Hooray. Never mind.
And I win.
What we saw was kind of the rejection of guru-itis and totemism where we have a very graphic visual display of Ted saying, you know what, this is a thing. This is not the thing that matters. And he tears up the belief sign and everyone freaks out about it. Zava isn't what matters. What matters are the people who are here and what's in your hearts. And, we're finally back to where we began. And to be honest, I have no idea whether or not Richmond's going to actually win the whole thing or not. I am increasingly of the mind that Apple TV Plus would like money. So I'm inclined to agree with something you said before, Tom, which is why not a fourth season? Even though
I don't think that was me. Was that Bryce that said that?
Maybe, I don't know.
I was also on this is the last season train.
Oh,
yeah.
But it sounds like you've got a ticket to ride.
I'm.
What is your opinion, Brian?
I am this close to getting a tattoo just of the words Ted Lasso across my chest.
Season 4.
Yeah.
Just do it. Yeah. Season 4 right there.
How do you guys feel about some of the cartoony turns that some of these characters are taking? We're spending a lot of time with like I don't know why they added another romantic wrinkle to this Keeley thing. I think it's really unfortunate that that's what her story is, and that that is one of the primary plot lines this year.
I don't mind that Keeley has a non-Jamie Tart love interest in opposition of Roy. I sort of saw it coming that it might be Jack, because she's the same actress that plays for All Mankind. And it's like, oh, okay, so she's gonna hook up with Keeley.
Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm like, that's why they're bringing her in. I'm not disappointed by that turn of events, but it was expected. And usually Ted Lasso surprises me more, is the way I would put it.
Keep in mind that there was a moment in this episode. First of all, I look at the whole Keeley trying to run a business thing as her running a mini recap of the way Ted Lasso won everybody over, by sticking to authentic principles and sticking, letting people go when they don't fit and all of those difficult decisions or whatever. But also, this was not overtly, but kind of subvertly, a very romantic episode in that we begin. This is the one where Ted wakes up with Sassy Smurf, right?
Yeah.
And asks her on a debt.
Was that last time?
Oh, sorry. Over the last few episodes, we've seen him try to reach out. Like he looks at Sassy and says, oh, this is not happening. He looks at the therapist and realizes this is a professional relationship. He looks at Rebecca and they have their awkward dance. And he talks to his ex-wife and speaks plainly. And now it's really up in the air which of those four options are going to end up being right for him.
So you're saying Ted and Keeley are getting together?
It's a bummer that's all her. Like, Rebecca's kind of fallen into the same thing. She clearly is obsessed with Richmond doing well. She says over and over again, I want the team to do well. And like, pointing fingers at management of saying, you're got your eyes off the ball. You need to focus on this. But meanwhile, she is equally off the deep end on another tangent. Like, it feels confusing, and it's kind of frustrating that that's the direction that I guess especially these Rebecca and Keeley's characters are going, which is that it seemed like they were doing really interesting new ideas for these characters, and then they've kind of just folded into I don't have a man, I don't have a baby, which is a little lazy, is a little rogue.
Let's see where they go with that, because you may be right and I'm worried that you're right, but you also what Ted Lasso does is surprise, and so I'm not ruling out that it ends up not being just that. Well, that this was a feint.
The one thing they've definitely done this past episode was at least tee up a possibility of Nathan to have a redemption arc in the viewer's mind.
He got redeemed with Jade. Yeah, that's huge. That's a huge pointer towards that.
I mean, I can't imagine there will be anyone in the show who isn't offered a redemption, or there won't be villains
coming
in the
back.
show. Yeah,
Zava's coming back before the end of the season. I just want to call that. It might be for West Ham though.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
I had not considered that possibility. I was since the moment he showed up, I thought Zava was going to disappear. I never thought he was going to come back. That's interesting.
Oh, I bet he pops up. I bet he pops up just like a little cameo or something.
But
Hey,
Zava!
Playing for a team.
Imagine Nate quits West Ham, comes back to help Ted. Zava goes to West Ham, and that's the final game for the whatever that's important.
Ooh,
Yeah, that's really tight.
That would be more guru-itis, right?
But the
Another type of Wonder Kid.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder. I'm interested because I imagine Ted Lasso will do this, will land the plane in a very not good versus evil way, right?
Yeah.
The whole thing of Ted Lasso is there's not evil. There's just.
I think Ted goes back to Kansas City and Nate takes over Richmond.
I think
Ted,
Ted moves back home and remarries his wife and gets back.
No.
or just find somebody new. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, I think he's going back.
Also, it's like it's pretty clear that his ex-wife is dating new Ted Lasso. Somebody goofy and over the top.
She has a type. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very weird that she's dating the therapist, though.
Yep.
That's unethical. Seems
Yep. Seems like that would affect your Yelp review.
Because I really dug. I mean, this was a few episodes ago now, but I really dug that Ted could say like, "Hey, that ticks me off like a lot." Just so you know.
Yeah.
I was glad that happened.
All right, that is Ted Lasso, Season 3, Episode 5. Let's talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 8, Episode 9. I'm sorry, Picard, Season 3, Episode 9, where we literally get the Enterprise D back, bridge and all.
Bryce, you're not watching this one, right?
Correct.
Okay. My goodness, Tom. This was a very bizarre 1 hour program because it felt like 7 years inside there. That show ended on cliffhanger after cliffhanger after cliffhanger. And I thought, well, that's the end. And then I wiggled the mouse and I was like, we're still going, are we?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're finally going to find out what's weird about Jack and his psychic power. Oh, he's Borg. Yeah, that makes sense. Locutus, DNA, something. A giant
that
conspiracy.
Was one where
they go ahead.
I was just going to say the whole, how are they going to explain with Star Trek science his ability to control others? And I'm like, I think I could buy that. I think I could buy that there would be some DNA technology that the Borg would have and that Locutus would get it and that he could pass it down. Like it all tracks. Like I wasn't sure they were going to be able to pull that one off. And then I was like, but how is he able to control other people? Oh, because they put it in the replicators. And so these are all people who have taken, or not the replicators, the transporters. These are all people who've taken transporters. And the nice little bit of like, yeah, but your body's ability to assimilate the DNA goes away around age 25. So it's really only the young people, our original crew won't be affected because they're all too old. That was all very elegantly done. Even if it stretches credulity, it worked for me.
I mean, it was very, very tight script writing that it's hard to reduce such a big pivot to so few words. Mm-hmm. And they did an excellent job of that. Help me out on the part where they said, nobody's had contact with the Borg in 10 years. And I'm thinking, wasn't the Borg in both season 1 and season 2 of Picard?
That was the remains of, in fact, that's consistent because they were studying the remains of a Borg wreckage.
Okay.
And it was Hugh, the independent Borg, was the one that was helping them. So they haven't had contact with the dangerous Borg in 10 years. They've only had these sort of archaeological things going on. And the Borg that we saw that were dangerous in those were reactivated from those sites.
Right. So anyway, then all of a sudden they decide that everybody young is bad, everybody old is good. Then they skedaddle on out of there. Also, by the way, all of Starfleet is infected by the Borg for reasons. And then they whoopsie doodle. Jordan LaForge just forgot to mention that not only did he recover the wreckage of the Enterprise D for Prime Directive reasons, but he's quietly kept it a secret that he's built an entire enterprise. And then granted, I really, really enjoyed the gift that we got. But the idea, like at the end, they head out. I'm like, so 7 people. That's all you need for an enterprise.
That's consistent with many TNG episodes, though, where like the crew disappears, or they have to take it alone, and it's like, yeah, the ship is mostly automated. You can run it with 7 or 8 people, like that. That's well established, right?
So, why is there a preschool on the Enterprise?
Because families were going on these long-term voyages.
Yeah.
Why?
That seems wildly irresponsible.
Yes,
now.
that was always the thing with TNG, though, is that was the case. I loved, speaking of references to early TNG, or to TNG as a whole, we got to see the Enterprise F. So the successor to the E, which blew up in Insurrection, the Enterprise F, commanded by Admiral Shelby, I believe.
Oh. Okay.
The woman who was insisting she would take over captaincy of the Enterprise when Picard was under the sway of the Borg.
Yeah. Okay. Now we're in the weeds, and I don't remember everything. It was remarkable to watch the Excelsior get exploded by way of a map that wiped it off. I was like, that seems like an important. Is that the Excelsior's job, is to just constantly blow up?
It's the one you can safely blow up without ending a movie. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man.
Having said all of that, this was an exhausting but absolute joy to watch. It was great. It was great. It was so much fun. Didn't love. There was a brief moment midway through where Jack is rogue, and I thought, oh my goodness, you have 3 entities. You have the Borg, who are this coldly expansive, biological fungus, basically. You have the highly emotional, crazy smoking lady chasing after him, and you also have the Federation trying to track him down. What a neat 3-player real-time strategy game I'm about to see. And they're all like, psych, he just gets captured by the Borg because he flies there on purpose. Didn't really love that. And it was a little bit exhausting, but they kept on surprising all the way to the end. My review of this episode is, that was a lot. A lot. Also, first time I've watched the end credits, because they decided to play the TNG theme.
Because they played the TNG theme there. Yeah. I have been rewatching TNG before this season. We even knew much about it, before they teased the return of LaForge and all of that. And so I'm very familiar with seeing that bridge. They did a great job recreating it. It was fun to see them on it. It doesn't make sense. I don't care. It was a great excuse to have him on there. Geordi's running a museum. If anybody could secretly rebuild the Enterprise D, it'd be Geordi LaForge. So why not? I also love that little fake out line of like, do you know what I've missed most about this ship? The carpet.
Yes. There was another laugh out loud moment from Data when new Data, which has a sense of humor, is like, oh, I fear that we're all going to die. And then Geordi's like, could you be more positive? And he's like, at least we're going to die quickly. And it was such a surprise. I burst out laughing. It was really good.
Yeah. A couple other things to note. The inevitable Captain Shaw, you're not part of the original Next Generation, so we're gonna kill you.
Yeah. What are you, Lieutenant Hawk from First Contact? We're gonna spend just enough time that we almost believe that you'll join the real crew.
That we definitely care about you. So we're sad when you sacrifice yourself for the greater good. I think I feel like there was one other thing maybe I wanted to bring up, but there's so, like you said, there was so much in this. I know what it was. I have been complaining that Picard didn't feel like Picard, that he felt a little nervous and unsure. And even if Picard had Ramotic syndrome, whether he does or not, that he would have still showed the old Picard decisiveness. And I feel like it came back. when he was on the D bridge. So maybe what we're led to believe is he's out of sorts because everything is unfamiliar and he's in a world that isn't the one he's familiar with. And that when he gets back on the D, those old confidences spring back up. And I kind of liked entertaining that idea.
Tom, this is an unkind thought, and I mean it with all affection for this franchise, this series, and all of the humans who make miraculous storytelling possible. But is it possible that AI has gotten good enough that we're able to just kind of tighten up a bit of those Picard scenes? Because they seem very tight.
Oh, you're wondering if they did that. I don't know. What I'm reacting to feels more like an acting choice than something that you'd have to fix, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm here for it, no matter what.
OpenAI knows. That is Picard, Season 3, Episode 9. Next week, same as this week. Succession 404, Ted Lasso, Succession 405, Ted Lasso 306, and Picard Season 3, Episode 10. And that is going to do it for Picard. So if you're wondering, after Episode 10, we will be doing Miami Vice with Ving Rhames, Season 4, Episode 5, Child's Play. That's 2 weeks from now, though. Next week is Picard Season 3, Episode 10. That's all available to you first as a patron. You get these as soon as we can if you're a patron, patreon.com/Cordkillers. So go help us out over there, and we will spoil you again next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.